It's really my pleasure and privilege to speak here and also receiving Crystal Award last night. I was recognized not only as a normal architect, but also I spent a lot of time doing, as I introduced, a disaster relief project. Because I was a little bit quite disappointed about my own profession as architects, because we are mainly working for privileged people. Money and power is invisible. People hire architects to visualize their power and money by huge monumental building. I have no objection because I love to make a monument too. But also I thought that we should use our experience and knowledge not only for privilege, but also normal public, but also people who lost their houses by natural disasters. I think that we can make even temporary housing better, more comfortable, more beautiful. That's what I'm doing. And I'm trying to make a balance of working in disaster, working for some monumental project. This is the first project I did with the paper tube, recycled paper, 1986. Immediately after I graduated from school in New York, Cooper Union, I started my own practice without any experience as an architect. This is experience for Alberto. First time I used the recycled paper because I couldn't afford using timber. In order to use for the structure, I started testing this material. Then I designed some temporary structure. This is at 1990. Before people start talking about recycling, ecology, and sustainability, I started because I didn't want to waste the material. This is an exhibition for half a year. And all the building wall is made of paper tube. And the diameter is 55. Inside is empty, 8 meter long. Wall thickness is only 15 millimeter. There are some bigger tubes here. Diameter is 120. Inside is toilet. In case you finish with the toilet paper, you can tear those inside the wall. Yeah. And then I need to make a permanent building permission from government. So I tested, spent a year to design my own weekend house. Although I'm not type of the person to enjoy weekend, but no one hired me to design the building out of paper, so I had to do it by myself. It's the first permanent building with a paper tube with government permission. This was built over 25 years ago, but room is still beautiful because I'm not using them. I have no weekend. Year 2000 in Hanover, Germany, there was a World Expo. The main theme of Expo was the environmental issue. Each country make a lot of temporary pavilion. After half year, we demolish them to create a lot of industrial waste. So that normally the goal of design is when building is finished. But my goal was when building was demolished, because I wanted to make my material of my building recycle or reuse after building was demolished. So this is a paper tube produced by a German company locally, but as a part of their contract, they have to take it back after the construction is demolished, then recycle again. That's a part of their contract we made. Even concrete, the foundation, normally we use the concrete foundation, but the concrete is rather difficult material to recycle. So I made a wooden box filled with sand instead of concrete. The connections is just fabric tape. Normally we use the PVC membrane, but PVC is not good for environment. I made the roof membrane out of paper, waterproofed, fire treated according to German regulation. And this is a completion. This is a huge structure. The length is 75. The width is 35 meters long. This main structure is paper tube, recycled paper. And also I make a building movable. This is a museum called Nomadic Museum. This is for Canadian artist Gregory Cobero. He wanted to have his own museum over 5,000 square meters, travel from city to city, country to country. So I decided to use a shipping container, not because shipping container is transportable. I use shipping container because this is international standard. You can find same used container anywhere in the world. So that this container was just rented. This is in New York on the 14th Street Pier. We rented this for 3 months from a nearby shipyard. After exhibition is over, we returned to the original shipyard. Then after we moved to Los Angeles, we just rented the container from local shipyard. This is a very old pier. It's a pile made in timber. Inside is a paper tube supporting the roof. And this photo is one in Los Angeles, Santa Monica, because we got the parking structure Now it's become the 2 layer of the 100 meter instead of 200 meter. We can even change the floor plan depending on the site conditions. As you see, the color of container is different from New York. This is one we rented in Los Angeles. This was my the temporary office in Paris. When I won the competition for new Pompidou Center in city of Metz, I wanted to open my own office in Paris, but as you know, renting office is very expensive in Paris. I couldn't afford. So I asked the president of the Pompidou Center if he would lend me the terrace or a rooftop. I want to make my own temporary office. So he agreed, as long as the audience of the museum can see inside my office to see what's happening in the next museum. So I was very lucky to stay there for 6 years without paying any rent, with a beautiful view. But there's one problem. When my friend come to see me, because we are part of the exhibition, they had to buy ticket to see me. That was a real problem. And this is a construction of a new Pompidou Center in city of Metz. The roof is made of timber structure. This is the idea come from. This is traditional Chinese bamboo hut. When I saw this bamboo hut, it's very architectonic. The bamboo woven, creating a hexagon pattern, and the oil paper for waterproofing, dry leaves underneath as an insulation. So that I wanted to make the roof like this in timber. I made the roof hexagon shape, even that each pattern is hexagon. Because if you see the map of the France, the shape of the country is nearly hexagon. So that for French people, hexagon is national symbol. I thought in order to win the international competition, I thought to use some international, the symbol of the country. But now I'm working on other project in Israel. I'm using this same pattern for different meaning. Yeah. This is completion, and this is I call picture window, framing beautiful monument of the city to connect the museum with the symbol of the city. And the ground floor is made of glass shutter, which totally open to connect inside outside. So this is when the glass shutter is open. Cafe and the plaza outside is totally connected with inside of the museum. And the night view, the structure comes out through the transparent membrane. And this is a picture window, framing important the symbol of the city. It's a very important cathedral of the city. I was asked to design the golf clubhouse in Korea, South Korea, but I don't play golf, so I didn't know what is inside of a clubhouse. But when I was very, very small, my father used to take me the golf range for practicing. That time we put the ball on tee, is made in wood. Now it's plastic. So that was only my connection to the golf. So I made the T structure in timber. So that was a very simple idea. This is a headquarters for Tamedia. Tamedia is a newspaper company in Zurich. And this is a 7-story timber structure in the middle of Zurich. This is the connections. I didn't want to use the steel connections. I just made the 2 beams, both sides of the columns, because it's oval shaped. The connection is rigid. It doesn't move for the lateral force. It's a very simple construction method to make construction quicker and quiet. This is inside. And then I talk about my refugee and disaster project. 1994, Rwanda, East Africa, 2 tribes, Hutu and Tutsi, fight each other, and over 2 million people became refugees. And when I saw the photo above, 2 photos, I was quite shocked. I thought Africa is rather a warm country, but they are freezing with a blanket. And I read the article. During rainy season, because United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees gives them such a poor plastic sheet, that's all. So they couldn't stand for the rainy, cold weather. That's why they're freezing with a blanket. I thought we have to provide them the better shelter. Otherwise, the medical care doesn't help them. So I wrote a letter to United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, but as usual, there's no reply. So I had to go there by myself without any appointment. And I was very lucky to meet a German architect who is responsible for shelter construction. And he accepted me as a consultant because of the following reason. This one is the typical UN shelter in Africa. They just provide them plastic sheet. And the refugees have to cut the trees by themselves to make a frame. However, over 2 million people cut the trees, and this used to be the forest, but all the trees gone. This became very serious deforestation, environmental problem. The United Nations started to provide them aluminum pipes, but aluminum is very expensive material over there, so they started selling for money and cut trees again. That's why aluminum pipe didn't work as an alternative material. So that time I proposed to use a recycled paper tube for the structure. That is why I was hired as a consultant to develop this further. This photo, this is 3 different type of the tent I was testing prototype. I was very lucky to get the sponsorship with one of the most famous furniture company in Switzerland, Vitra. Year after, 1995, in Kobe, Japan, we had this big disaster. Nearly 7,000 people killed, and this city totally burned, fired after earthquake. And I knew that there's many Vietnamese former refugees gathering in this Catholic church. I thought that this minority people must have more difficult time than more than the normal Japanese victims. So I went to there, and they're having morning service without any roof. So I asked the priest, why don't we rebuild the church out of paper? But he said, I'm very crazy proposing the building in paper after the fire. I didn't give up, so I commuted to Kobe. They were living with very poor condition in the park with plastic sheet. They couldn't move into government temporary housing because the housing was built outside of the city. They couldn't. They are working in particular factory. They cannot commute from this temporary government house. Also, then finally, priest accepted to build the church as long as I do fundraising and building with students. This is a very small church, 10 meter by 50 meter. Everything was built by students. This is the first time they had a morning service under the roof. The priest said that maybe they can use only 3-4 years, but actually they used for 10 years because they loved it. After 10 years, they decided to rebuild bigger church, but we had a request from Taiwan. They also had a big earthquake. They requested us to donate this church. This is it in Taiwan, in the disaster area. This became permanent church and the community center in Taiwan. Then I wonder, what is temporary? What is a permanent? Even the building out of paper can be permanent as long as people love it. Even building made in concrete, if building was built by commercial developer to make money, this can be very temporary because other developer destroy the building, to buy the land, destroy the building, put a new one. So even concrete building can be very temporary if that is building to make money. But even such a inexpensive building made in paper by student can be permanent if people love it. And 2008 in China, in Chengdu, they had a big earthquake. Over 25,000 people were killed. But also many of the school building was destroyed. Many children died. And I started building temporary housing, but the local government doesn't want a foreigner to make a local housing. Instead, I was asked to to build a temporary school. So I brought my Japanese student to work with a local Chinese student for 5 weeks, totally by student. We made the 3 buildings, 9 classrooms, over 9 classrooms, over 500 square meters. Using local paper, tube, and the wooden joint. Everything was made by students. 2009 in Italy, L'Aquila, near the Rome, the old city was totally destroyed by earthquake. One of the issues was they have their own Philharmonic Orchestra, School of Music, but all the concert hall was destroyed. I proposed the mayor, why don't we rebuild the concert hall because the musician was leaving from the city. And he said, I'm going to give you the land free, but you have to do fundraising by yourself. I was very lucky I got a phone call from the Japanese embassy in Rome, and they're going to help, they like to help my fundraising. This is construction. In order to have very good acoustical wall, I didn't want to use concrete because it's too expensive, and also as a temporary structure, it's too heavy. So the wall is made of metal cladding, the scaffolding filled with sandbag. This is the inside. This is the opening concert. Paper tube was used as an acoustical material, not as a structure. 2010 in Haiti, left side is Haiti, right hand side is the Dominican Republic. Because the Port-au-Prince, the capital of the Haiti, was totally, the airport and the port was totally closed. I had to fly Santo Domingo, capital of the Dominic, and drive over 7 hours to the capital. No material was available in Haiti and no volunteer people. So we made a team in Santo Domingo, prepared all the material with paper tubes. We went to there with material by truck to put up them, and also we trained local people to build shelter by themselves. Then 2011, in Japan, north side of Japan, we had big earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear problem. This is a typical evacuation facilities. It's a gymnasium. They have to stay there until the temporary house is built, but there's no privacy. So they have to suffer the situation. There's no privacy between families. But privacy is very important, the condition for the people. So I went to there to make partitions. It's a partition made of paper tube with a fabric curtain. The authority didn't allow us to make a permanent partition, so this is something they accepted, something flexible to open and close, but everything can be easily made by volunteer people. So this is just 2 hours. And over 50 facilities all over the damaged area. We built 1,800 units with volunteer people all over the Tohoku area. Then, unfortunately, they have to move into such a poor construction housing made by government. It's so close to each other, you cannot open the window. Inside there, no storage, it's so messy, leaking, no insulation. You can suffer the noise from neighborhood. It's terrible condition. They never try to make anything comfortable. But I thought also that the important thing is that the 500, over 500 kilometer coastline, which was damaged, there are no enough flat area to build standard single-story housing. I propose make 3-story housing with a shipping container. One of the town, Onagawa, in Miyagi Prefecture, they just had only one baseball ground, and they had to build 190 units, but it's too small for standard government house. They accepted my proposal to make, first time in Japan, multi-story housing, temporary housing. Inside is like this. It's same size with what government made, same budget, but still we can make something more comfortable and better. And the resident here, they just want to move out. 20 days before the earthquake in Japan, a big earthquake hit Christchurch in New Zealand. This is the most important Anglican cathedral, which was totally destroyed. I got the email from the bishop. He asked me my design fee to make a temporary the cathedral. I said, if the temporary cathedral is used not only for the religious service, but also for community services, I work free as usual. I was asked to come immediately, so that between New Zealand and northern Japan, every week I commuted between 2 areas. I respected the original design of the cathedral to use this geometry into the new design of my new proposal. This is completion, made locally in Christchurch. However, the local factory in Christchurch was small, too small, to make the paper tube requested for the structure. But I didn't want to import either from Australia or Japan. I wanted to use the local material with local people. Making the structure out of cardboard is not important for me, so I put timber inside the cardboard tube to reinforce them to use the local material. This is a rose window. The pattern comes from original rose window. This is the last slide. Here is the bishop. He was very happy, except the cross. I proposed to make a cross, also out of paper tube. She said it looks too cheap. It must be too cheap to make a cross out of cardboard. Then I had to convince her. I told her, in Japanese, the paper, which is called kami, also means God in Japanese. Making the cross out of paper is also means God. So it's very good. So then she was convinced. Now she's very happy to have a cross out of paper. I'm also making monument, but this became the kind of symbol, and also the many tourists is coming back to Christchurch. So I'd like to continue building any building to be loved by people. Thank you very much.